What's up, y'all? In this video we're going to take a look at the Baldwin Rim Lock. Now the Baldwin Rim Lock has been around for 50 to 60 years and it comes in different sizes. This particular setup is pretty much mimicked from what I just repaired on somebody's house. I took all her broken springs and put in one of my lock bodies that I have here in the shop to show you how it can be repaired. Now these guys run nowadays about $1,500-ish altogether, so it is definitely worth it to repair it when you have broken springs. There are 3 springs inside this fella. This particular customer also had a couple of other problems in that her key was not working. Now when it got called in, it literally only got called in as a key not working in the lock, so I was thinking tailpiece is broken, and it was just terrible acting. This part was not springing in. Now I will mention that I have it reversed because they're not reversible, and this was the one I chose to do the video. So normally the bevel would be facing the other way, so just ignore that part for right now. But otherwise everything, the only thing working in her lock was this part, and it wasn't working that great at all either. So she called us to repair it. Ended up having to order special order springs from Baldwin. Now people may bring up the Baldwin warranty. The Baldwin warranty didn't start till 1997. In 1997, very few of these were sold compared to pre-97. So almost always this is not going to be a warranted part. But any locksmith company, and I've done videos on repair parts in the past and still have issues to this day where we order parts and we can't get them anymore. Baldwin has always been really great about getting parts out, individual parts, and they are huge in the individual part business, and they always have been. So there's part numbers for every little thing out there. The part numbers that are included for these springs, I'll post them here later in the video, but first we got to get it off the door. Another thing about the Baldwin rim locks is they normally come with this little small doorknob, right? Not these egg-shaped knobs. This was a customer choice at some time or another because, again, Baldwin, you could pick and match and choose. However, they really send the small knobs for a reason with these, is because Baldwin uses heavy brass and these are really heavy knobs and can cause problems. Now some people have a version of this that may look like that, so they actually make an even fancier plate that goes on the outside, but it works the same way. You just swivel this guy up out of the way to use your key. Standard Baldwin rim cylinder. They also come different sizes. This is the 5701, and they also come vertical with the latch coming out that way. So there's a lot of different choices that are out there, and they all use different springs. This one is the 5634. The customer actually had a 5636, which has a bevel, a separate piece, and I don't see that too often. So that is kind of one of the newer versions, but even then the customer had to buy the replacement springs for it. But the bevel makes it like look cool. I'll put the video or a picture of it right here. First off, we got to repair it. We got to get it off the door, right? So again, this is just a standard Baldwin. Nothing was wrong with this. And you really need a flathead screwdriver when you're dealing with these, and a 1/8 inch Allen wrench to get the handle off. Baldwin used 1/4 inch by 20 thread Allen screws to hold all their knobs on. So you have to take the knob off and you have to take the interior off. You got to take the knob off the interior first off. So I use my Jason modded Eklund 209012. Got a video out on that, and I'm going to go ahead and just unscrew the 2 screws, Allen screws that hold the knobs on. Now the outside is probably going to be pretty corroded, so it's always best to go with the inside first. Now that's 1. Yeah, I've got 2 under here. Maybe no. Okay. All right, so this was the other problem. The other problem is the customer has a stripped out Allen headed screw right here and on the inside. And so luckily I was able to unscrew it just enough to start unscrewing it from the spindle. Now, typically, a lot of times is if this knob gets loose and keeps falling off, if we get it totally unscrewed here, I'm going to show you a couple of components with these guys. I did get it, luckily. Otherwise, you have to drill it out, and trust me, drilling out that screw is not easy to do. So if this screw didn't come off, you would just go around to the outside and hopefully unscrew those screws and pull it off. And then you would obviously probably either have to drill this screw out or try to screw it in. I actually did that on site. But luckily I had some Baldwin doorknobs, and it's part of the whole refurbish of her kit. She got a brand new Baldwin doorknob out of it too. So we're gonna set that aside. This washer is a thick washer. It's really designed, they make thick and thin. The thick is designed to level out that, to sit onto that. Now, another thing you'll see here is once I got it unscrewed is it's not sticking out very far. Baldwin, you needed a extra long spindle, and the spindle is the bar that goes through. We'll go ahead and take it off the outside. Another thing you're going to find almost always on these is once you take this spindle out, okay, so it's not coming this way. That's because we boogered up the threads on the other side. So we're going to go ahead and unscrew the outside, just kind of problems like you might run into on site. I only had one screw there, so we're just going to go ahead and unscrew it from the outside. Probably would need lubricant to do that because of the weathering on it. But I want to show you, don't ever drop a Baldwin knob, especially on somebody's floor. So this is a very short spindle, and you needed a 5-inch spindle on these. Now, Progressive makes a 5-inch spindle. As to how many people actually stock it, that's a whole different story. See the difference? See how that was barely screwed in right there? When you're putting this guy back on, if you've got a short spindle, you really need to get the longer spindle so that when you screw it in, you screw it past those threads. You want it a good, 3/16 or so past the threads to provide a firm support in there. So the first thing we would do would be to switch out the spindle. We switched out the doorknob. I'm going to go ahead and screw this in. Now, I have this on a not 1 3/4. This is 1.5 builder's lumber, so it's not the same size as a doorknob. Normally 1 3/4 door is going to take up about that much. Then you have this much of the lock. You want your screws to go in far enough to support it totally. So we're going to go ahead and take it back off and use the spindle that I have because it's shorter. If you have a thin door, it's not going to be 5 inches. It'll be a 4-inch spindle. You just really want to screw it down until you see that move past right about there, and that's pretty good. We'll see if we can't tighten this down. You can do all this, if your knobs are fine, you can go ahead and put this back on. Slide it through there. Let's see, it's kind of problematic because the latch is sticking out and not in the right area. But once you push this through, it needs enough room for that second knob. When you put it up against it, it needs to extend past those threads. So that's just barely getting it. Anyway, we'll worry about that when we come back to it. Another big problem, like I mentioned a minute ago, is this guy is just going to fall off. It's going to be, the wood will be rotted out in there. Of course, here it's a fresh installation, so we're going to show you. It's got 3 screws. Typically, you would just rotate it a little bit. It probably has been done before, and there may be holes all the way around. But sometimes in 50%, 60% of the time, you can just rotate this a little bit and screw it back in. You do want this to be perfectly in line with that. So what I do when I do that is I'll run this through, boop, and then I'll mark the holes while it's holding it steady. Because if it's up or down, it's just going to bind up the lock. Anyway, get that straightened out. Now we got to take the lock off the inside to see what the problem is finally. So let's go ahead and set all this aside, grab our flathead screwdriver. I'm going to be using the one that I use on site. It's a Bezel. It's especially cut down. Justin T sent me this one. It's cut down a lot different than a flathead. So magnet. So see, it doesn't bevel like this. It goes in and comes up straight. It's like parallel. Anyway, thanks again for that, Justin. So I'm going to go ahead and just start unscrewing these. Normally I'll do all 4 of them before I start actually taking any out. It's probably going to be a little bit harder than this to do for you. Now I will say, when I was mounting this to the door, because of the issues with the lock, I had some problems mounting it. So I basically mounted a messed up tailpiece lock, which kind of threw everything off a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and take this, start supporting it. You definitely don't want to drop this $1,500 lock. Boop, boop, get that out, or scratch it, so be very cautious of that as well. And pull it out. Now, what we see here when we take it off, so obviously the spring's broken. That works, right? I hear some broken stuff going on in there, and the tailpiece is twisted. When I got it off, I was thinking, oh, the tailpiece is not broken. What's going on? What actually has happened is, because this tailpiece was twisted, it's stripped out. It was probably misaligned for quite a while, but there's supposed to be tabs in there that this tailpiece goes in and turns. Guess what? Those tabs are just gone. They don't do what they're supposed to do anymore. With the tailpiece, with screwdriver it does. We'll get a closer look at it in a minute. All right, so we're going to carefully set this aside right here, grab our flathead, and take the cylinder out. Now, when you're unscrewing the cylinder, make sure this guy is held up. So what I'm doing on the other side is I'm kind of holding all of this together with my hand, basically. So I'm just going to boop, just like that. Because it has to be straight up in the air for the cylinder to come out. And we have flathead screws, of course. You may have Phillips, but flathead is almost always going to be what you encounter here as well. So you definitely need the flathead screwdriver when you're doing this work. Now, with the bent tailpiece, I had a replacement tailpiece, but you can easily, most of the time, if it's just bent like this, you can usually clamp it up. We're going to try to clamp it up in the vise and see if it'll straighten out and be structurally sound enough to not break in the future, basically. Because these are kind of unusual cylinders. This isn't your everyday rim cylinder style. You could use a regular brass faceplate rim cylinder, or even a different color if this covers it up. But bright brass rim cylinder. But look at it, we got a bent. So we should be able to straighten that up. It looks, this metal was pretty tough back then. So let's just see if we can vise that guy up. All right, let's place this fella face down on something soft so that it doesn't scratch up the face of it while you're working on it, and start to remove the screws. So this screw holds this plate on. We're gonna go ahead and just take that off, and because we can see one broken screw already. Now these screws are different, so make sure and go the right one back in the right spot. Mark them if you have to. So that, and this attaches it to the body of the lock. Go ahead and do that. But we could have popped this plate off before we did that. So we're going to pop that plate on, just pull it out of the way. And we can see the broken spring number 1 right there. I've got some new ones sitting here with the part numbers. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. And we're going to put this with this guy over here so we know it went into that. And in fact, you can do that with the other one as well. And then these two have the rest of it on there. So let's see what we got inside. I mimic this exactly like the customers for the most part. I mean, of course, the pieces and stuff in here may not be the same. We're going to go ahead and get this out of the way because it's obviously broken. And then lift our plate up out of the way as well. It may catch on this because it's perfectly sized. So it may bring it with it. If so, that's okay. All right, so looks like we've got a green surface in here. We can see a broken spring and parts right there. 100% broken again. That is what pushes this back out. So without that and without this, you had no return action at all. And the last spring is this guy. Now this one I've actually never seen break, but it was cheap enough to go ahead and get one while I was doing it. And kind of rebuild it like a kit rebuild. So this one's okay. But again, the main problem was actually remember our thing wasn't turning here, so if we pull this out, all right, check it, make sure it's not bent. That's good, set it aside. If we pull this guy out, we can see what used to be little nubs that stick out that when the tailpiece turned, it grabbed. And that's what this part is. This is the 5604 039 00123 part, which is called the cylinder turn hub. And as you can see, it has definitely worn out. Gone are the teeth, which are needed. Not very much there. Look at that casting error. Look at that casting error. Oh, okay, I just brushed it out of the way. So check that before you put in new parts. All right, so we have that. When is that going to go right back in? Maybe. One thing I noticed on site was it seemed to be a little bit different. Maybe not. Maybe it was just her lock. So one thing you can do while you're here is switch this out if you want. That is part number, I believe, 5600 039 00043. That is the turn. So if if it's slipping and it's not the knob and it's actually just rounded out here, which this customer's wasn't, but I went ahead and just ordered it anyway as part of the rebuild kit. It just it does have some rough areas there. If you can look at the difference in hers versus a new one. So you can definitely tell when things need to be replaced, right? I mean, that's a big difference. What's going on with this notch in this one, but no notch in this one? But yeah, that's how worn out that is just from riding in this guy. That's literally what it's caused by riding in that outside. So yeah, we're definitely going to go ahead and replace that part too. So let's go ahead and put this guy in, which actually was the original. At this point, you might want to start doing this. This guy's pretty green, but it's just a display model, so no big deal there. We're going to put this back in, make sure it fits right. This goes up into the spring, so that's correct. If you need to replace this, now I don't have the right part numbers. The part number for this guy over here, the big one that is most likely gonna break on you, is this 2128-509. 2128-509, 4 of them. Yep. So that guy goes here, and it would go like this. Now there is a part right here that might come out, so be careful with that. Make sure that stays in there. Yeah, and then we're going to push this down, just like that. So now we have spring pressure again. We have turn knob in here. If this guy needs to come out, I don't know which number this is. This one was marked out. All right, so I marked out 2128 on this one and put it on that one. So I'm guessing this is 2126 and 2127. Or 2126 and 2127. Either which way, again, you might as well just replace them all while you're in here doing this. So if we had to replace this guy, we would just lift him out, maybe a little pressure off of this. Yep, slips right out just like that. And we bring our new guy in. There's nothing wrong with this one, so boop, new guy. And bring him in here and wrap him around the top just like that. Again, if you want to clean off some of this old, almost assuredly you need to come through here and be cleaning all this off at the time. All right, so I got that guy in. Let's see if we can drop this thing in here and it work okay. So, just like that. Just like that seems to work okay. All right, let's get that final spring in. Now we've got a little bit of spring pressure on it. So again, scoop. Generous amounts of lubricant. That all just needs to be wiped off and re-lubricated, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. All right, so we're going to drop this down on top, just like that. use a little screwdriver, as with any Baldwin work or mortise lock work or whatever. Having a screwdriver to maneuver parts around definitely helps. All right, so now we're gonna grab this plate, put it here after we wrap our legs around this. So just like with any coil spring, you would probably be like this, right? Doop. Okay, let's do it this way. Boop. All right, we're gonna hold that down with another screwdriver, maybe right in there. Yep, just like that. And let's go ahead and start screwing this guy down. Nope, again, that was not the right screw. We need this guy. Actually, 3 of them are the same. This post right here is the only different one. And once we get this guy screwed in, we can let off pressure. Okay, should be good there. Next, the long wrist screw right in the center of the body. That makes sense, that tracks. I want the most support in the center portions, really. I'm not going to screw it all the way down until we get the rest of them in. Nope. We're missing the label on this one. Snug. Snug. Kick the camera. Tight. Tight. Definitely use blue Loctite. I'm not doing it here, but blue or purple Loctite will be good right here. All right, let's go ahead and give it a function check. Ew. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's go check it with the knob. Alrighty, we're going to check all functions. We did the deadbolt on the counter. It works fine. Key working beautifully. Again, the latch is supposed to be the other way, but it's just is what it is. And we're going to check this guy. Oh, look at that. It springs in and out like it's supposed to. And lastly, let's, we forgot to do the cylinder tailpiece. Hold on, not done yet. All right, to do this correctly, let's go ahead and take this tailpiece off and flatten it out. Key out. We're gonna use our bezel electric driver for this guy. Standard mortise cylinder type screwing with a twist. It's got a little spacer. So this little spacer comes off of this one. Some of them had the spacer, some didn't. Hopefully you can get this guy to come off. And now we're just gonna make that flat again. Try the easy way. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this out because that angle bugs me, but it's not that big of a deal as long as it's not too long. And it still has a little bit of a twist in it, so I'm going to clamp it right pretty much where it twisted at and use a set of parallel jaw to kind of tweak this back into position. Boop, boop, just like that, maybe. Yeah. That's good. Yep. Tailpiece back on. Screws back in. Rekey if needed. You definitely have to rekey these cylinders at some point, so it's good to know how to access them anyway, alright? Even if you don't have to repair the lock. Tight and tight. Check our key before we put it back on the door. Beautiful. Alright, let's grab our mortise cylinder screws and that plate that was actually really close to being the same size as what I drilled here. So we got to lift this guy out of the way. We're going to pull our key out halfway so that we can kind of control the lock. Lift up, insert, drop back down. Again, I'm going to kind of hold it into position like I did when I was taking it off. Make sure it's straight up and down. Hold that guy out of the way. Look on the inside to see where the holes are and go ahead and get our plate back on here. Doop, doop, doop. Again, this should stick out only a certain distance. If the key, once you get it installed, which it should have been working to begin with, you know, stripped out, but broken springs, but the tailpiece should be the same length unless you're having to replace it. So it needs to not stick out too far, and on this door, it's pretty dang close to sticking out too far. I had to trim it a little bit, so hopefully the grinding of the tip will help. There we go. Boop, 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 boop. All right, once you start getting close to being tight, you want to check, make sure it's level, out there, and make sure this plate is going over the hole correctly. So I'm just going to hold it with my thumb while I do this on both sides. Tighten down a little bit at a time, kind of like the lug nuts on your car. So tighten down here and tighten down. And we're going to check our key. We're going to hold this guy out of the way. Check and make sure it turns and comes out okay and it's not binding. Good. And grab our newly repaired lock. Where'd it go? Okay, you want to be careful when if you lubricated it, you want to make sure that that lubricant isn't gonna, you know, pour out once you put it on the door. So you want to make sure that was kind of patted dry. All right, so we have this guy needs to go over this and line up with our holes. We're gonna set this key down and grab at least 2 of the mounting screws. So I'm gonna guide this by eyesight right here. Yep, right over that. Boom. And it should mount just like it was before. So we're gonna take our screws, put them in there. Once again, I feel the need to point out, where are you? Remember me saying that the mounting was kind of screwy because when I fresh installed it, I used the tailpiece that was bent. So that made mounting it interesting. All right. Okay, can't do that on a regular door, so I'm not going to do that on this door. Kind of use a steady hand here when you're using this flathead. You definitely don't want the flathead screws to skip off. They can jump very easily. Okay, at that point I'm going to try this, and it's not really working. I think it's binding up here, y'all. That's because of that mounting. So let's see what we can do here. Yep. So we got a little bit of a bind there. Let's put this out. And then we're going to shift the whole thing over that way. Okay, there. Maybe that'll fix the problem. Yeah. All right, let's try that again. Now you'll notice it's sticking off the edge just a little bit, depending on how big of the gap is in the door whenever these people were putting them in. Boop. Boop. Boop, boop. Okay, we're good. Let's use the other 2 screws. All right, check your key, check your key. Boop. Yep. So there has to be a hollow something's wrong with it. Let's see what it is. Did I miss something? I did miss something. A penny. Be very aware that children think that that is a piggy bank. Okay, so as you can't just tighten one all the way in. You kind of have to do just like you do when you're changing your tires. Slowly but surely go in. If that tailpiece is off just a little bit, it definitely will cause problems putting it back on. So definitely take your time. Check the key as you're tightening them. You may have to shift a little bit here or there. But there definitely is a little wiggle room that you have to deal with. All right, so after that, again, make sure the spindle of your handle extends beyond it. Here we had a stripped out screw. So what would we do with the stripped out screw? You know, the problem with it is not really stripped out. It's more the metal is bent over right here, stopping the screw from going anywhere, which caused it to strip out. All right, just for giggles, let's try a couple of things here. I know it's really stripped out pretty bad with my Eklund. You can always try stepping it up to the next size metric, especially if you have one with a worn tip that may bite into it enough. And we're going to try screwing it in only. So let's see. No, that won't go in. Let's see how a brand new 1/8" Vega bit works, if it'll seat in there well. No, totally stripped out. Alright, next process would be trying a small flathead. Maybe you can get it in one of those spots and kind of get it to go. Maybe. Nope. Alright, what about drilling it? Yeah, we can try that. It's not great to have to do it, but let's give it a go. What kind of bit do we want to use? Something smaller than 1/4 inch, obviously, because we're going to need to re-tap it. That looks like that's just the ticket. Where's my drill? There's really kind of 2 or 3 things that you're hoping here for. Number one, get your safety goggles, because one of the things that could very easily happen is your bit could shatter. We're going to try to just drill it and hope that it pushes through, right? So that we can maybe but the problem is it's going to grab into the head of that and try to break the bit. So that's definitely a possibility. There we go. I think we probably can preserve this knob. Especially with a little blue Loctite. The threads aren't even that damaged. So, yeah, let's check that out. All right, now that we got this guy on and all the screws horizontal, so you don't have to, but it only makes sense to do that, right? We've got all the functions checked. We need to come in and put in our rosette up here. And also what was missing before, and is usually missing on all of these, is the Mylar washer for the outside. So the Mylar washer provides kind of a smooth surface instead of this rubbing on the brass and denting it in like we saw with that other part. That protects it a little bit. So this is the interior. We need the exterior. We've tightened down our screws at the kind of 4 o'clock, 7-ish position. We're going to come in with this guy, put this on the outside. All right, boom, just like that. And check the inside. Make sure we have enough extending out. That is barely enough. We're just going to use this as an example. Ideally, you would have a little bit more thread sticking out of there, but because we're using a kind of a different size board, there are 2 sides to this washer, a flat side and a rounded side. The rounded side goes like that. We've got our screws backed out there. Looks like this one needs to be backed out a little bit more, just like that. Our new screw end, Loctite it up, and put this guy out. And you can actually tighten it down and leave one of those screws out to know that you went on all the way. So if we just kind of back this guy all the way out, see, that's going to cause us problems because it's right on the end of it. And when we go all the way, we can't tighten it down too much. So that is definitely not enough for us to do anything with. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if we can get a little extra threads off the other side. So let's go ahead and unscrew both of these. And at this point, I would definitely be looking for another spindle. So let's back it off a few threads. That's right there at the end. We're kind of pushing our luck here. And this is exactly why knobs strip out. Once that becomes a little bit loose, it really just doesn't have enough threads to bite onto. But let's see. This was the outside, so bent through, screws facing down so the dirt is not collected on them. We got pretty much one more thing of threads there, so we will see if that's quite enough to get it. Good enough for demonstration purposes, but again, the point remains to make sure that it's screwing down all the way. So there we go. And we'll grab that screw. Come down here to the inside. Which one did we take off? We took this side off. Huh? So we're just going to come in there with our Jason modded driver, and we can see it's exactly why we have it. One of the many reasons is because you don't want that to hit. You still have to turn it out, but it definitely is allowed to get a lot closer. So let's kind of see if we can do it. Yeah, just like that. Let me come over here so I can see what I'm doing. Doop, doop, doop. Whenever you're working with these, it's always in a shadow because you're down on the bottom here, so you probably may need a flashlight. Okay, tighten, and tighten. Okay, now see here, it's tightened too much, right? Because it won't let it spring back out. So here's one of the problems when you're dealing with Baldwins and spacing and all that. One thing you can try to do is if you tighten these down all the way, back it off. And I personally keep several of these Mylar washers, and usually if you space it out by a couple of washers, it will be. But these knobs were never traditionally tight on these doors. So they always had a little bit of gap in them. They have to be able to operate correctly. So we're just going to loosen it one full turn. Worst case scenario is you can go to my eBay store and order some washers, right? Okay, just like that. And then tighten this other side down. Just like this. Make sure the other side's tightened down. So, got a little bit of gap in it, but that can be taken up by the one, a couple more washers. Working good. Key outside working good. Throw it out. Unlock the other way, and then the bit key, of course. So that is it on fixing the old Baldwin rim locks. It is entirely possible. Check with your local locksmith if you need one of those springs. Any locksmith with any distributor account can order those through their distributor. So you may need to, for certain Baldwin parts and pieces other than this or different sizes, you may have to have your locksmith call tech support to Baldwin and figure it out. But it's just another thing. They're way expensive, and there are plenty of there's ways to get replacement parts for them. So there's no need to think that it's just bad and it can't be fixed. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments on this or any other videos, post them in the comments section. We'll catch y'all next video. Good for another 70 years, right? This was put on in not this one, but the customers was put in 1970 something. So got them going again. She actually got a brand new knob. This is actually her knob. So she got a brand new knob out of it. A lot better condition. Yeah, there you go. Did you notice this? It's designed to stop like that. That's why it's exactly that far apart. If you swing that up and just leave it right there and lock your door, and then swing it back down, swing it back up, and let it sit there, and then unlock your door, and then swing it back down. I don't know, bet you didn't know that.